A new week and a new Battlefield patch, and this one brings with it some interesting updates to Firestorm, base game, and brand new cosmetics in the form of elites. Around 3 or so weeks ago, I created a video talking about the brand new elites that were on their way into BF5, and they are now active and available to purchase. If you want to buy these, then you have to dip into your own wallet, unfortunately, because they cannot be purchased with in-game currency. How much are they going to be? Well, the standard price for them is 1500 Battlefield coins, but for the first run, they're going to be priced at 990. So what do you get for your money? Well, these elite characters have a unique look that fits in with their personality. To go along with that, they have their own exclusive melee weapon, their own unique voice lines, and even a custom best squad animation. It's important to note that these elite skins are just that. They are cosmetic only and offer no upgrades whatsoever to gameplay. There could be a small element of confusion here because of the elites in BF1, as they were upgraded characters that you could pick up on the ground, but that's not the case here. These are visual only. The first two, and I say the first two because we are definitely going to be getting more of these down the line, are Seamus Byrne and Ernst Schubert. Seamus is an allied character and he joined the Irish Guard to get close to the action. He's got that kick in the door attitude apparently. Ernst, on the other hand, belongs to the Axis faction and is more of a calm and collected character. Of course, this backstory matters for nothing when you jump into a game and play with them however you choose. It's just a bit of character building and maybe some memes will occur down the line. Now, Seamus's unique melee weapon is the lever pipe. It's pretty chunky, and then Ernst has the K98 bayonet. I think they're pretty cool. Interesting first edition for elites as cosmetics in BF5, and I've already seen quite a few people running around using these models, so obviously people are buying them. That's just a choice though, it's up to you. So let's talk Firestorm for a second. There have been a few changes when it comes to the brand new game mode that are worth mentioning. First of all, the end screen is something that I've definitely said needed work since the get-go, because it was such an anticlimax when you won a game. You came first, go on, bye. It really felt like that. It needed to be much more of an event, and in this patch there's been some real improvements in that area. Now there's a much nicer animation with a V for victory and a better transition into the squad screen. I'm not going to say it's now all fixed and perfect, it still needs a bit more drama and gravitas surrounding it, but it definitely looks better and it's a good step in the right direction, so that's good to see. But one of the biggest changes in Firestorm is a tweak to the amount of armor plates that you can carry. Previously you could only hold 3 armor plates, which is fine for the most part, but you'd often find yourself scouring the floor for armor plates in the mid to late game trying to find more because armor is so important, and if you killed a squad or a player, all of their armor on their vest would be shredded and usually they didn't have any plates. But with this update you can now carry 5, which I think will make a big difference, and this means that if you've got medium armor and max plates, then you can replenish it to full twice, or with heavy armor you can replenish it fully once and then have 2 plates to spare. It's going to be interesting to see how this changes up the meta, if at all. Will this mean that players late game are always going to have armor now? Who knows, but what it does mean is that there'll be less downtime searching bodies for armor plates, although that could be further improved with changes to the loot system, which sadly are nowhere to be seen just yet. I say that they are working on it though. There was also an interesting point in the patch notes that said improved netcode for bullet trajectories to prevent tracers and the actual bullets from being out of sync when playing Firestorm, as well as other netcode improvements that could previously cause inaccuracies between the client and the server. Now, I can't pretend to know exactly what issues that caused, but it could perhaps explain a few odd moments that I've had in Firestorm. Some of the changes include extra XP for playing Firestorm, which was definitely lacking compared to standard multiplayer for the time that you sink into a round. Also, dead bodies will no longer look like they're alive and twitching, something that could really confuse you from time to time and also give you nightmares. Oh, and this is an interesting one and something that you may not even know. DICE have fixed a bug that allowed players to bring a gun from the lobby into a Firestorm match. Yeah, imagine that. Thankfully, it's fixed. Down players also have more health, 300 HP instead of 200, so this has been designed to help the thirsting situation when someone goes down and you instantly just finish them off in squads. Maybe it won't completely change that, but it will definitely give teammates more of an opportunity to collect themselves and think about how to get a downed friend back up by using smokes or taking out the enemy first. Again, I'll need to play a bit to see exactly how much of an effect this has. And lastly, and this applies to the main game as well as Firestorm, no longer will you be fully dead if you die while in a vehicle. It's incredible to think that this was still a thing, but say you're playing Firestorm or any game mode for that matter and you were in the gunner seat of a half track, let's say. If you got killed, that was it for you. You're gone. But thankfully, that's no longer the case. Instead, your body will be now pushed to the side of the vehicle, so teammates at least have a chance of reviving you and getting you back up. I think that's a nice quality of life improvement. And speaking of quality of life, I mentioned in a previous video that DICE were changing the way that the combat roll worked when you vaulted from a large height. In fact, they now have made it fully player controlled. So rolling was tied to vaulting, and that means that if you vaulted from, let's say, a window in a building, you were going to do a roll without ever being able to stop it. The only way to prevent it would have been to not do the vault animation in the first place. Jumping never caused the roll, only vaulting. In this update though, the player can now decide when and if they want to roll, which means they're no longer tied to vaulting. You can trigger a roll simply by pressing the crouch button, assuming the fall is high enough. And just to be clear though, if the fall height is going to be deadly, a roll is not going to save you. This isn't a superhero movie after all. So if you choose not to do a roll, well, you're going to lose HP because a landing roll reduces fall damage by 40 HP. To balance this out, the animations have been improved and shortened, and it's pretty noticeable. I'm not too sure about this just yet, if I'm honest. It's another key that the player has to hit, which for some could be an issue more than for others, but it could also offer up some interesting player choices and depth, so I need some time with this to see exactly how it pans out. And one thing I don't need to wait for to know how well it's going to feel is the camera shake slider. Yes, in BF1 eventually we had a slider added that allowed us to control the amount of camera shake that happened when explosions were going off around us. I'm not sure about you, but I put that on the lowest amount possible as soon as it came into the game, which I think was 30% in BF1. But that slider has now made its way into BF5, and it allows you to control the strength of the screen shake between 50 and 100%, 100% being full strength of course. The default value is 75%, so if for some reason you like screen shake at the maximum value, then go ahead and turn it all the way up. I will definitely be turning it all the way down, and you can find that setting under the advanced gameplay options. There are a few changes to healing as well. For example, the reintroduction of a healing effect that will only be visible on the edges of the screen when the player is currently healing from any source, so either a passive or pouch. And the current system is said to be less intrusive than previous versions, and to be fair, I think it is. And suppression will also no longer delay the activation of passive healing. Onto some vehicle changes and tank turrets. Heavy and medium tanks have had their base turret speed increased, and alongside that the power of the specialization that gives you faster turret speed has been reduced from 125% to 115%. Now DICE said that they felt that the base turret speed on the tanks was perhaps too slow, and most players were choosing the turret speed specialization because they felt that they had to, and their hope is that by improving the base turret speed, players will be offered up more options when it comes to speccing out their tanks. And in other news, the Blenheim now has 500 and 1000 pound bombs instead of 250 and 500, and that should make it more of a match for the Ju-88. Now last of all, some weapon changes and camera recall. Bear with me. When firing, weapons are now allowed to go a bit more off-center, so the true point of aim will follow the weapon and it's not fixed to the center of the screen. This may sound familiar because it was mistakenly listed in a previous patch note, but it's only just been changed in this update. As well as that, the way dispersion works when firing SMGs and ARs when you're aiming down the sight has changed. The second, third and sometimes fourth bullet for slow firing weapons are now much more predictable. Cool, whereas the later bullets are less so. The idea of this is to make shorter bursts more effective while making a mag dump a little less effective. And this change was also listed in a previous patch note, but it has only just made it into the game today. All of those changes that I just talked about are a significant amount of bug fixes and small balance tweaks to varying UI elements and game modes. Way too many to mention, I'm not going to bore your socks off. Some good quality of life updates as well as some brand new cosmetic items for players to buy if they choose to. But of course, as with any BF5 patch, it's introduced a few new bugs, and one of the worst offenders is that when you're shooting at people and hitting them, the UI is telling you that you're doing more damage than you're actually doing. And some people thought that they may have sneakily increased the time to kill, but DICE have come out already and said that this is a UI bug. Nothing has changed with damage or health values or anything like that, and they will probably do a hotfix as soon as possible to amend this. Fingers crossed. With that said, I'm going to leave it there, guys. If you've played the new update, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.